Do not, Israelites, my fellow Israelites in captivity worldwide to this international banker scheme. All my brother and sister Israelites around the world who have been enslaved under a curse of the moneylenders. I am here to proclaim Yahweh's good news of release from captivity and the methodology wherein which that captivity is ended. It comes with a new song, a new emotion, a new idea. And to understand that, you have to remember that your fathers' going way back at one point did not pay to live on the land. Through coercion. They did it because they loved Yah so much that they kept his commandments, because it was the Yahweh of the Old Testament who released the people, our ancient Israelite fathers who were in Egyptian captivity. Well, sadly, history has repeated, and we are now in Egyptian captivity, and our children are being culled in the exact same manner as under Caesar and Herod 2,000 years ago, where they killed a generation of children trying to get to Messiah. And then prior to that, under Moses, Pharaoh killed Israelites, mass genocide. History is repeating, and to understand what's going on in the world, you have to use parables, you have to use Yahweh's commandments, and you have to have a tribal mindset, meaning think of the American Indians or think of the Amish, First Nation people, the Hawaiians, before Babylon came in the form of the British Empire, Captain Cook. Right. At one point in time, all of the First Nation people did not pay. And the Bible is a history of the tribes of Israel who Yahweh took them by the hand and brought them out of captivity, because when they were in captivity, life looked like what we have right now. You work all the time, you're making bricks for Pharaoh, and they just keep killing us and having more international wars that we have no interest in, all because of usury, and they've turned us all into bondservants. Okay, so the title of the video is Don't Pay Caesar. Don't pay Caesar's taxes as best as you can, because they come steal your stuff, right? I have not paid income tax or filed a return since 2011. That was my last one, and I'm done. Because if you want to come get me, because I have communion with a great king whose people went to jail and were martyred on his behalf because they believed in him, they loved him, they had a first-person relationship with this great king who takes trash like Wayne Walton and transforms them into Yah warriors, where Yahweh puts his words on their lips, where the word is weaponized so much so that people run. One will chase 1,000 because the word is weaponized, and they run. All of these phonies on the left and the right, and they run these Austrian economics guys. They run the churches and the pastors and the popes, and none of them will debate. None of them will debate, because the word is weaponized, and Yahweh has a message to all the tribal Israelites in captivity right now. Hear this. Hear this deep down in your soul. The king has come with good news, and it sounds like this. This is the sound of Jubilee. This is the sound of a new song. I'm not good at it. I'm sorry. I'm butchering it. I need to edit in. Somebody that does editing, they need to cut in a good spot of somebody that knows how to blow a shofar properly, because it is the sound and the voice of Yah. And although it's trembling right now because we haven't rehearsed this enough, and what we need to rehearse is the coming Passover. The coming Passover is the sacrifice of the Passover lamb, which is Messiah Jesus. All right. So it's this king from the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's the same king. It's the same Lion of the tribe of Judah, the overcomer, who has paid a debt to satisfy a curse from Deuteronomy 28:43 through 68, where Yahweh's people were commanded to be in captivity if they were a bride who rebelled. And sadly, we have rebelled from complete monogamous relationship with our king and creator. So if you can think of a creator king that speaks to you in your times of trouble, in your times of tribulation, and he walks you out of those situations in the same manner that he did with David when David was public enemy number one. This is for a great people with huge cojones, because those that speak this truth, that Hawaiians will get Hawaii back in their First Nation there's like a slang word that Hawaiians use about foreigners, or specifically, I think, white guys. Justly so, because it's been the white guys that have brought this usury slavery to the West in the form of capitalism and to the East in the form of communism. It's the same usurers. That's why these capitalists or the communists don't want to debate. You always see the Republicans trying to get the left to debate, but they won't. Similarly, the conservatives and the constitutionalists, this is the big hurdle of our idolatry, is we, the people, do not have authority to create law. That is the message from this monotheistic king. And since we can't create law, we can't create laws to create taxes. Okay, so let's roll it back and go through some scripture to support what I'm saying. I basically was trying to get 7 witnesses for scriptural witnesses that I could back up using the New and the Old Testament. Okay, so let's get to the meme. Here we go. The teaching. Don't pay Caesar. Thou shalt, and these aren't my words. Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. And the reason you want to learn this, brothers and sisters, is you will make all these devils flee from you. These devils will just, hey, pastor, you say that the Jesus is your king, right? Okay, what's the supreme law of the land? They're going to go, well, it's the U.S. Constitution. And all the tribal Israelites go, what's this Constitution thing? Think of the American Indians, right? So you have the white man coming, peddling his treaties for territories, right? Like, hey, we didn't have a territory. Like, number one, we don't want to sell. Number two, we don't want anything you guys got, this sickness, this madness, this delusion. The American Indians would look at the white man and with the strong delusion, the madness that they have, and have even to this day, of materialism over spirituality. The Christians are materialistic. They're the ones that would kill Jesus first, calling him a dirty pot-smoking hippie. Cannabis of Exodus is holy as a sacrament from Exodus 30:23 in the form of holy anointing oil. And I am anointed coming with the good news, and I hope you feel it, my brother, sister. Okay, so thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. That is from Luke 4:8. That's when Messiah, Jesus, is being tested in the wilderness. And when he was being tested, he quoted the Old Testament because he's the Son and he obeys the Father. Hallelujah. He is pronomian. He is coming with it. Bap, bap, bap. He's coming with the good news in Luke 4:18 and 19, shortly after that, where he said, no, the good news is Jubilee. The good news is Jubilee, and Exodus is a Jubilee, brother, sister. We leave. Deuteronomy 16:13 are all, so Jesus quoted Deuteronomy 16:13 when he was being tested by the adversary, which is just a confirmation of Exodus 23, which is the first commandment. Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God. That's the first commandment. A God is the one who creates the law, the creator, right? We have a very loose terminology of what God is. God is the all-powerful creator of everything which has ever existed. That one. What the atheists and the scientists call the Big Bang. He's the guy that did it in 7 days, because that's what's up. That's what time it is, Pharaoh. All right. So number 2, render to Caesar what is Caesar's. That is Matthew. So I'm giving verses which people typically use to support the nonsense that we're supposed to pay Caesar, because they've been tricked into being Romans. That's why our Israelite, that's why cannabis is so important, because cannabis gets you in touch with your tribal Israelite history. A little better. Okay. Remember tribal. Think of a tribal mindset. Think of an American Indian viewing the idea that we're going to pay some dudes in DC a tax, right? All right. So typically people use render to Caesar what is Caesar and render to Yah what is Yah's, right? Well, that's from Matthew 22:21, the quote of Jesus himself, the king. Earlier in John 1:3, the Word was God, right? The creator and the Word, he created the whole thing just with his word. Therefore, he can talk to us anytime that he wants. And that's what he wants for his people, to dwell among his people, that his words are heard above all other authority. Do you have ears to hear what I'm saying? Yahweh wants to speak to you directly and have an anointed hero's journey for you to fulfill the true purpose of your life. Hoorah! Okay, so without him, John 1:3, in the beginning there was Yah, and the Word was Yah, and the Word became flesh. Without him was not anything made that was made, meaning that every single thing that exists was created by this all omnipotent, this creator king of miracles, this creator, he's coming to clean up the temple, right? Because this place called earth is his whole temple, all of it. Every knee shall bow and all lips will confess that this king. And why do they do it? Not by force or might, but with the Ruach HaKodesh. That's Hebrew for Holy Spirit, the Spirit of Yahweh, where you get in the fighting spirit. It's like, no more. I got 2 little sons and I shall die. In fact, I am dead already if I refuse to stand. Said Sitting Bull, said Cochise, said David, right? When the government and the foreign armies were after him, what did Yah say? And Yah, a God, his man is off his heart. Yahweh uses David as the example for a public enemy number 1. Enemy of the state. But here's the deal. Pharaoh knows what's up too. And Pharaoh knows that nothing can happen to his anointed. Yahweh protects his anointed extra because they're the ones that are at the tip of the spear, leading the charge against these delusions, this mental. Yeah, Henry Garman here says, let me show this. Henry Garman is an anointed. In fact, we did a video together in Breckenridge where we proclaimed Jubilee and debt cancellation in the streets of Breckenridge. We were singing in the streets. Henry Garman, how'd it go? It went, by the rivers of Babylon. Henry, let's sing it together. I'm going to get on screen. Where am I at? Okay. By the rivers of Babylon, where he sat down, and where we wept when we remembered Zion. For the wicked carried us away, captivity required from us a song. How can we be thinking of a song in this strange land? Right, this strange land, this captivity. So let the words of our mouths express the dedication of our hearts. Right, the dedication of our hearts. I shall stand, like Apostle Paul did. I shall stand and witness like Stephen did before he's stoned. And all these men witnessed that Yahweh's law shall never fall. The king shall never fall because he lives with his spirit through us. And that is how we shine a light on the hill and become image bearers for this truth. And Henry Garman and I performed the Cannabis of Exodus anointing in Breckenridge, Colorado, when we proclaimed Jubilee as every 7 years, all debts are canceled. Check out my website, judetrevolt.com, for more information about biblical law about debt cancellation and discovering your anointed hero's journey. All of you men and women, we all have an anointed hero's journey. And if you want to read about it, read the book of Exodus about a formerly great people who had gone from freedom, to captivity to freedom, where Yah dwelled among them. They had complete freedom. They didn't pay. They did not pay Caesar. Do you understand the signs of the times, brother, sister? Okay, Henry Garment. It's more important to make Caesar pay. Go to the Fed and demand payment. Turn the tables. A piece of paper with a dead president's head on it is a promissory note from Caesar. Right. It's a very important point Henry makes it, because the curse of Deuteronomy 28:43 says, the alien among you shall rise higher and higher. You will go down lower and lower. He will lend money to you. You will not lend money to him. We will become the tail, and they, money lenders, will become the head. The money lenders are the head. It's a witness of the truth of Yahweh. And during the Exodus, under Egyptian captivity, they were bond servants, right? They were debt slaves under Pharaoh. That's why we have all these pyramids on our dollar bills, the one world currency, and the Star of Remphan, which is actually the image of the enemies of the prophets of the Old Testament. Because the image of we Israelites is the seven-branched menorah, which represents 7 and 7 and debt cancellation every 7 years at the seventh feast, right? Yahweh puts his imprint of 7 all through his creation to say, trust me, I know where to go. I know where to use my Torah as a lamp in the darkness out of the captivity. Trust that Yahweh promises that he's going to send his anointed one, his priests and his messengers, to proclaim the good news that they're coming to tell the whole world, no matter how dire it looks, no matter how big this Goliath is in front of you. Guess what? Guess who wins between Pharaoh's chariots and Yahweh? need some bass in that, right? Yeah, needs work. I apologize. I'm butchering it. Okay, so yeah, Henry's comment is great. And similarly, it says in the Bible that, for instance, Moses and Paul were both bond servants to Yahweh. So the means by which we become bond servants to Yahweh instead of Rothschild, the moneylenders, international Talmudic Jewish usury, right? The 666 imposters that have set up the throne in Jerusalem, they are the modern Herods. And in the same way that they're the modern Herods, the modern Christians are following the Jews that murdered Messiah. So this prophecy has become reality. So if you can understand all of the agents for control in Jerusalem at Passover 2,000 years, on one corner, we have King Herod the Great, right? So you'd have crowds just yelling out how awesome he is, just like you have Netanyahu showing up in the Congress where he's getting all of these ovations, right? King Herod, that's like Netanyahu, really. That's exactly it. And you have all these alleged Christian politicians cheer, Herod, hooray, all hail Herod, right? But then, next week, Caesar's like cracking down, right? So they're like, the next day they're, oh, Caesar, we surrender you. And that's Trump. Right, so you have all these factions battling out for supremacy. So you have to understand what's going on is they were in captivity at that time because the Jews of that time were not obeying. Just like the Israelites prior to them, the 10 northern tribes, they were not obeying Yah's commandments. Yah said, that's it, you're going into captivity. And that for them, it was in Assyrian captivity. Just like the Jews later went into Babylonian captivity. That's the song, by the way, Rivers of Babylon is written about. Zion is Jerusalem. And Yah wants to set up his temple there, but he's got to cleanse it of these free marketers, right? These guys want a free market where just you can buy and sell on the Sabbath. You can turn our Father's temple into a marketplace, right? And in Revelation, it says the merchants of the earth are going to whine. Why? Because Yah does this. Yah goes like this, in a minute, that fast. Who created it all? All of it, the buildings, these thoughts, the internet. Man, or did Yah create it? Are we just living out a story of our Creator's creation? Right? So how do you want to cast yourself within this story? Right? Do you want to be a Yah warrior, or do you want to be a bond servant to Yahweh? Do you want to be a bond servant to Rothschild and Netanyahu and Greenspan and Bernanke and Yellen, these, the aliens among us? And they're alien because they've got the 666 that they put on the one world currency in addition to the Pharaoh symbol. So anyway, they put a pyramid up in their Supreme Court building, right? Can you connect? The Supreme Court building in Israel has a Egyptian pyramid and an Egyptian obelisk, and that directly portends and directs one to investigate and read Deuteronomy 28:68. It says, Yah saying, if you obey me, it's going to be great, wife of mine. However, if you diss me, wife of mine, I'm the king. I can't be dissed without repercussions because it'll lead to a great rebellion. So a little rebellion, it just gets worse and worse and worse, gets us to where you are, where finally Yahweh has a complete divorce and you're in Assyrian captivity for the 10 northern tribes. Right? Well, these are all analogous to Egyptian captivity and Caesarean captivity or Babylonian captivity. All of these forms of captivity are the same. And in Deuteronomy 28:68, it says, I, Yahweh, if you diss me, I'm going to send ye away in ships and sell you back into bond servitude, debt slavery, in Egyptian captivity. More witness of the seventh. It's all about debt and slavery. If you obey, Yah strengthens us. If we rebel, Yah strengthens our enemies and we go into captivity. But what we've done, sadly, is because we've had these Herodians on the throne our whole lifetime, going back 2,000 years. They've always stayed. They're the synagogue of Satan, who have impersonated the righteous Jews like Nehemiah, because in Nehemiah 5, he led a debtors' revolt and he condemned usury. He condemned the free market. He condemned capitalism of his time. He condemned, and they required land restitution of land that was stolen because of usury. They were in the same condition that we're in right now. And if the true Jews, whoever wants to step forward, Spielberg, why don't you make a movie, right? If you're legit, make a movie about Nehemiah 5, about how the Jews are leading a debt cancellation, land repatriation, because Hawaiians get Hawaiian back. That's for sure. The indigenous in Australia should get their land back, right? We sent criminals there. What kind of, that's us. I represent the white guys. We should all go back. We messed it up, right? Our bad. But however, now we can lead through the restoration of all things and put the cornerstone back into the foundation. That's what's up. That's why we're here. That's what this is all about. Scott Bunnell says, not bad, not bad. Michael Harvey says, Stephen St. Catherine. So she's, what do you call that? Tagging someone. So if you guys ever have, I please would truly appreciate like tagging people and bringing that. In fact, that's what all of us should be doing right now. Tagging people and bringing in. If there's people you know that are Christian and believers, this is Yah's house, where his law is sovereign above all other authority that exists, because he created it. Man, okay, so we're only on what number? Okay, I meant to do this like super fast and it's not happening. Okay, I got to take the comment down. Okay, we're good to go. The producers producing, where did I finish off last? Okay, I'm on number 3. Okay, so these are the two objections. Like, so normally go, oh, no, Wayne, you're just way off here. This is where the pastors come in, shilling for the money lenders as the evil shepherds that they are, the wicked shepherds, because the true shepherds are willing to die on behalf of the flock. And if you talk to 99% of the pastors out there, what I'm describing right now, they are gonna throw you off the cliff like they did Jesus. They're the same guys, they just been tricked. Talmudism is Christianity is Talmudism, or churchianity, I should say. Churchianity is Talmudism, just like what the Talmudists do. We the people cannot create law. Okay, Romans 13 is offered many times as an objection as to why we should submit to the government. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. Well, guess what the highest power or authority on earth is? Yahweh's. And that government that he proclaimed is in Exodus and Deuteronomy, and it's Romans 13 pertains to tribal Exodus government of judges, or there's sometimes called judges, sometimes called rulers. Submit to the rulers. How were the rulers chosen? Well, the unit sizes are tens. Oh, I have a typo there. It should be 10, 50, 100, and 1,000. Those are the unit sizes, very highly effective unit sizes, similar to the United States Marines. Unit sizes, and they are quite effective in completing missions. of those overcomers. Hoorah. Okay, so we're rolled down here to another objection that people often make. By the way, when Jesus says, render to Caesar what is Caesar's, that was a totally separate verse. When Jesus says, go pay take the fish, go get a fish, and the fish got a coin in his mouth, and then you use that to pay the temple, right? Well, that was a legitimate tax because that is from Exodus 30:13. So I'm summarizing here, and I just want to distinguish it for you a little bit. Matthew 17:27 is, take it and pay the tax for the both of us, right? Alternatively, render to Caesar what is Caesar's, right? It was not in the same setting. It was two different events, I should say, because it's from Matthew 22:21. So it was after. You can tell which one was first by the verse number. And so anyway, it's important to distinguish. If you're investigating this topic, you know the devil's in the details, and you want to make sure you're getting a correct witness from our King. Okay. Next, number 4, Luke 23. This is Pontius Pilate and basically the Talmudic Jews, the Torah-hating Jews, right? They're the ones that murdered the Old Testament prophets, these guys, because they set up shop like the bad guys always set up shop and make a counterfeit. It's identity theft. It's a false flag. We're subject to a false flag. No, don't allow this information to instill fear and hate. In fact, burn one. I'm going to, it's past the hour of incense, which is 9 to 10. Thank you, Yahweh, for your altar incense and bringing me closer to your wisdom. Okay. So, yeah, Luke 23:2. The king is about to be assassinated. And who's he being assassinated by? The Jews. And these Jews are contrary to all men, as it's witnessed by Paul. I think it's like 2 Thessalonians 2:15, something like that. And it's basically, there's an important witness there that Paul himself says it was the Jews who murdered Jesus. They also murdered the prophets, and that they're contrary to all men because they hate men, because they're the diametric opposite of what true Jews should be doing. And that is leading a debt cancellation rebellion a la Nehemiah 5. Spielberg, get on it, baby. Show your true colors. Okay, so we're rolled down here to, I got to read that. The Jews getting ready. This is where they're testifying. This is in court, right? We found this fellow perverting the nation and forbidding to give tribute to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ the King. And then Pontius Pilate goes, is this as they say? Is that true? And Messiah witnesses himself. It's true. 1, I am the king. 2, don't pay. Sorry. Can only have one king. The king is feared and obeyed and makes law and receives taxes, otherwise known as, that's what monotheism is from the Exodus. They only obeyed a single authority, like the American Indians, like the Hawaiians before the Whitey. The American Indians before Whitey, Africa before Whitey, right? And who conquered? At one point, Whitey was conquered. They were living free and tribal. They weren't trying to oppress, right? So there's nothing inherently evil about any particular race. And it was just happened to be the white guys were the first ones that were conquered by the Jews in Europe, and they fought them for quite a time. There's a 1,500-year history of Catholics fighting the usurers, the Jewish usurers. The Merchant of Venice is about that character named Shylock, who's a pawnbroker. Think about in our society, there's pawn shops all over the place. There's payday loan. There's no limit to the amount of usury in this society. The free marketers have won, right? You've turned the whole temple into a marketplace, including the churches are all monetized. They're all businesses, right? Well, Yah's coming to shut down the business. Okay, the fake businesses. That's how you whip them. Okay, Luke 29 through 19. It's the parable of the wicked tenants. And to summarize that parable, there is a vineyard owner. He's an owner. He's the top guy. He's the creator of the vineyard. He's the one that cultivated it and made it in 7 days. And he's the one that commands how it is to be governed. Well, there's these wicked tenants. You know, he had them work in the fields, and they had a responsibility to maintain the vineyard, right? And that's our responsibility as it's commanded in Genesis, that we have a command of our king to be the gardeners, take care of the garden, keep it up, keep it well maintained, keep it from turning itself into a marketplace where everything becomes commoditized, and we warehouse our grandparents and we warehouse our children. These are not tribal family ways. This is a complete destruction of the family that this Babylonian system has performed on our families. We should not be surprised that when we send our children to Caesar, that they come back as Roman polytheists. That's the whole point of the educational system, that we, the people, create the law, and that we, the people, becomes the supreme authority, which is rebellion. It's humanism. Humanism, as Adam and Eve and the serpent, when they voted, that they came to find that Yahweh is a king. There's no voting. Even if all of us decide that there is no gravity, there's still gravity, okay? So that's what we're smashing our head over. That Yah laughs at us and said, we're so stiff-necked. Can't you see it? Just a good analogy for all of this, I think that's most useful for me, because I'm a male and I'm like strong-willed and put too much faith in my own capabilities. Like, meaning everything's like, if there's a problem, that I have to go fix it. And if I don't, I'm a failure. Now, the problem is if you misidentify what the problem is, you end up putting your ladder on the wrong wall. But if you use Yahweh's wisdom, meaning to go after the moneylenders in the pocketbook, don't try to fight them by voting. Don't try to fight them by boycotting their entire system. The whole thing, all of it. That's what Exodus means, right? You change it, you cross over from being polytheist and cross over. You're a polygamist. Think of girls that just play the field and they won't settle for a single guy, like, and how willful they are, right? Well, that's what Yahweh is dealing with. Yahweh's brokenhearted because he shows that through the crying prophet Jeremiah, crying and lamenting over I've had this where your girl, like your love, like your heart is crushed because you don't know where she is or who she's with, and your mind just goes racing to the worst places. And sadly, in many instances, it's true, right? So you're totally betrayed. And often, you ever know a guy that his girl is that guy, or his girl is that girl, just playing him. And because he's got such low self-esteem, he just lies to himself, and they kill the messenger. That is the paradigm. We're both that victim of being punked, that people are trying to warn us. I'm here to warn you, to tell you unpleasant truths. That's why all of the apostles were martyred. That's why Jesus and John the Baptist were martyred, because they represented the tribal First Nation rebellion against this international system of genocide. Kapow. Okay, so Parable of the Wicked Tenants is about those imposters who they're having everybody work under them, but not turning over the tithe to the vineyard owner. And then Yah sends his messengers and they kill him. And then Yah, the owner, sends his son, the Messiah, and they kill him. And it says, what is the vineyard owner to do? Right? So it's just like he's sending messengers to speak to his bride. I love you. It's going to go wrong. It's going to go, you're going to keep suffering. It's going to keep being painful. The money lenders are going to chemtrail. They're going to poison your food, water, air, and minds. And their goal is to kill 90% of you. And if you keep paying their taxes, you're supporting, it's suicidal. You're financing your own suicide. Smack out of your delusion. There's 7 billion debt slaves versus 1,000 money lenders. We win as soon as we decide and stop being cowardly. And we do it simply with the song. By the rivers of Babylon, where we sat down. Number one, step one is admit that you are in captivity. And where we wept, we wept. We wept because we remember times when we are in nature, times where everything is perfect, times where we feel at peace, that there's true shalom where everyone is made whole. All the injured parties, the injured Hawaiian people received their nation back because the shalomers bringing true restoration of justice. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor. That's the good news to the poor. You get your land back, brother, sister. You get your culture back, brother, sister. You get your language back, brother, sister, because Yahweh is tearing down Babylon and he's going to confuse the tongues. Hoorah. All right, so where are we at? Parable of the Wicked Tenants, that's what's up. The owner. Do you want to be a wicked tenant? Do you want to support the wicked tenants? These the Queen, the Vatican, all these all these guys were in the city of London and the Vatican, where they've got an Egyptian pyramid set up. Washington, D.C., pyramid set up, an obelisk, Egyptian obelisks, I should say, I misspoke. However, there is an Egyptian pyramid and obelisk in the Israel, Rothschild, usurer Israel, supreme Edomite, Esau, I should add, the Edomite. If you know your Old Testament, brothers and sisters, the ancient enemy of the Israelites who have stolen the identity, just like Jacob did to Esau, right? They're just punking each other, right? That's what's going on. The brothers fighting, like throwing Joseph into captivity. All of these parables apply. You got to know who your king is, right? That's the only way you're getting out of this, man. Come around, turn, brother, sister. Okay, this king, so now I want to show you that, basically I'm trying to demonstrate that the king creates law. Okay, well, what is that law? That should be the next question you ask. These humans, these Caesars and the Pharaohs, the emperor has no clothes. These guys, the veil has been removed, and now you can see the man behind the curtain. That it's just some man working some levers, and they've got control of Facebook and YouTube. They're working the levers of control. That they got control of the schools, and they're promoting their anti-human, anti-family, anti-Yah, transgender dysphoria, Sodom and Gomorrah system globally through using the Pentagon and the mercenary armies called the United States military, all of them. Mercenary armies sharing the diversity and the Babylonian mixing and gender dysphoria and women fighting in the army, right? You don't have that in the Bible. The men fight. That's why you have judges. The formation, the unit size and structure of that government was from Deuteronomy and Exodus. It's tribal Exodus government rulers of tens, 50s, hundreds, and thousands. So those brothers, sisters that you find that are willing to surrender to that government in your community because you go and make it happen. You go and recruit it, because that's what I'm doing. And we've been making music about it, and I've been, my kids hang out with their kids, and I talk to them like, hey, we're under a chemical attack right now. Actually, do you know we're actually under nuclear, biological, and chemical attack right now? And the authorities, Pharaoh, says it's cool. In fact, that's the mission, is to reduce us by 90%. How are you going to get out of that other than by the hand of Yahweh? There is no other way. Can't see no other way than the righteous way, brother, sister. That's from Slightly Stupid. Okay. Okay, so the way you do tithe, Deuteronomy 14:23, tithe 10% of your grain, wine, oil, herd, and flock. So what's profound about that? Number one, this is it. It's actually the increase, 10% of the increase. So if you're break even with the year before, no tax. It's only 10% of the increase, right? So if you got 1,000 and next year you got 1,100, you're taxed not on the 1,100, on the increase, 10. Surely this perfect law of liberty is a reflection of a great, great king. Additionally, because you can pay your tax in whatever form of whatever it is that you're already doing, meaning if you are a farmer that you just grow wheat, you can tithe only with wheat. How much wheat do you have around if all you do is grow wheat? That's easy. You don't have to go sell your soul to go get a job in Hollywood like Steven Spielberg, where you have to completely sell your soul to the lie of scientism, which is in rebellion to Yah of the Old Testament. His alleged, I don't know if he's an atheist or whatever, but bottom line, they certainly use the position. They've been brought there for a reason, these guys. So I say, right, public shaming, you got to shame them, bring them around. I love you, Steven Spielberg. My favorite movies were yours growing up. Absolutely, because you cultivated my hero's journey that was already, but you diverted it into nonsense, right? Every child has a hero's journey burning in them that Yahweh put there as their anointed mission in life. And all of these agents of deceit in Hollywood and Madison Avenue and Disney, et cetera, the government, the Caesars and Babylon's training centers. Our King allows us to pay a tithe with only 10% of the increase. And it's labor-based, meaning you don't have to, if nobody's monopolized gold, that you can only pay with gold, that you can only pay with Bitcoin, that you can only pay with Federal Reserve notes, that you can only pay with any. The money monopoly is broken by the form in which taxes are accepted. Similarly, so that's how you break. That's the Achilles heel to the entire system right there. That's the Achilles heel to the entire system. And later it says, extremely important, if the where you're supposed to bring your tithe, if it's too far away, you can't deliver it physically because it's too difficult, then turn your tithe, turn your grain into money. How would you turn? Well, you could sell your grain, but the other ways to do it is you write an IOU to the judge of 10, 20, but it's not really to them, it's to Yahweh. That's how you become a bond servant to Yahweh. You write a bond is an IOU, Urah. That's how you break it right there. That's a labor-based currency, local, self-sufficient, monopoly. Everybody knows each other. These are your judge. You picked them. Excuse me, I shouldn't say that. Yahweh picked them. You would know that real quick if you lived in my neighborhood and my kids hung out with yours. It's our job to clean up the neighborhood, clean the temple. Okay, lastly, Acts 17:7. Many people, they confuse the order of the Bible, like meaning, the general understanding is that the Jews obeyed the Old Testament and the Christians obey the New Testament, and they're two gods and they're two laws, and that they are in conflict over the law and over different gods, when in fact, they both worship the same law, or I should say they should serve the same law with some modifications for animal sacrifices. Because in the garden, in fact, there's no eating of animal flesh in the garden. Isaiah talks about that the lion lays down with the lamb and that the leopard will eat straw like the ox, something close to that. So for you vegetarians and animal lovers out there and vegans, my wife and I have been, I'm not saying this is a command by any way, because it gets really confusing because it says to eat meat for Passover. So anyway, it's all good. I'm not going to force the issue on, but I'm just saying the goal is the restoration includes the end of carnism and death. And like, this is a big goal. This is a very worthy goal for you anointed brothers and sisters. Check out JudetRevolt.com, because that's where I have a lot of videos that talk about the hero's journey. It's a lot of people witnessing their own hero's journey. And in a hero's journey, you got to change teams. For example, Moses had to change teams. Originally, Moses thought he was a prince of Egypt because they were killing the Israelites. They put him on a little ark. He floated downstream and he got into Pharaoh's house and grew up. And he was raised and taught that he would be an Egyptian. And that's an important thing for us to think of. Like, our whole lives since we were born, all of the movies, all of the education, kindergarten and pre-K and elementary and middle and high and college and university, all of them are created in order to brainwash us, including the movies and advertising, to turn us into materialistic rebels that we'd hate, that we'd become feminists, that we'd become capitalists, that we'd become communists, that we'd adopt all sorts of cultural Marxism, that the world. So Yahweh created perfection, the garden, and then the fall, and everything became turned upside down, right? There's only two options in Yah's creation. There's obedience and rebellion, and that's it. The Constitution is rebellion, period. Ends there. So all of the U.S. military and police who've taken an oath to the U.S. Constitution, and the Constitution, by the way, forbids debt cancellation. So if you war game this and if you walk this all out, there are no options other than Yahweh. There's no voting option. There's no military option. There's no violent revolution option. There is this option, Jubilee. We stop paying. We Exodus, plan for Exodus. We should be rehearsing. I should be rehearsing. So you know how terrible I play the shofar? So in a manner that it gets slightly better, like maybe a little, I lie to myself that, but when the guys are like, sometimes I'll hit it right and it'll be like real bassy. And at one point in time, if you heard that and you were the enemy of Yah's people, because Yah had made his people so strong that a tiny minority would whip butt all the time. Like Yah would send one, just like the word of Yah is weaponized. And when Yah's people become a bride which is fit to be married, and that marriage occurs at Exodus, at Mount Sinai. And that's when the Israelite people, they actually married. Yahweh is looking for a bride that obeys. That used to be one of the wedding vows, to love, honor, and obey him to the exclusion of all other authority, including the wife's own individual authority, where they, in a patriarchal system, they all get in line, all of us get in line to the chain of command, which is going to, set up the elders. Think of the New Testament being a prequel to the Old Testament, Steven Spielberg. Can somebody name some other Jew Hollywood directors? Because I don't want to just pick on Spielberg alone. There's they created Hollywood, so it's like all of them. What movie I really like a lot in terms of the hero's journey is Avatar. If you can look at just the hero's journey, it's similar to Kevin Costner in Dances with Wolves, where he basically falls in love with the tribal life, first a true chain of command between a people who honor the creator above the creation, or the man's system, the Babylonian system of a free market where everything is commoditized. So finally, Acts 17:7. Now it's after Jesus has died. So some people say, well, the law was nailed to the cross, Wayne. It's all different now, right? So they just have all of these excuses. And I've just heard them so many times, they make me want to vomit. And you can't get these guys to debate. Like it's a one and they're gone, right? You can't, they just retreat. One will chase 1,000. And this is how you chase them, is with this stone cold truth. This is how the sword of the Spirit is the word of Yah. It is the Logos. Logos, the Logos. It is the lowdown to learn and prophesy and understand what time it is right now. It's Sodom and Gomorrah time. It's that level. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. If you don't think Yah is going to, if you look around in the world promoting Sodom and Gomorrah to children and forcing it upon them physically, if you don't think Yah is going to go do some extra unique and special things in this time of great tribulation, you don't understand this king at all, because he's the king of miracles. Let me tell you about this one. In Acts 17:7, after the former apostles are already getting murdered, that's how courageous these guys are. These guys had cojones because they feared Yahweh, and they didn't fear the government. They didn't fear the IRS. They didn't fear Pharaoh's chariots. They didn't fear Caesar's Roman legion. They didn't fear anything other than Yah, because Yah writes a script, and Yah is the one that scripts in how we're going to die. And I think our King and Creator wants us to die like light shining on a hill, oorah, standing up for their people, oorah, making sure their children are not raised in captivity, oorah. Thank you, Yahweh, the King and Lord of hosts, who comes with good news for his people in their time of calamity. And these righteous men, let me describe them, or how Luke wrote Acts. I believe Luke describes them. They all act contrary to the decrees of Caesar. That means that Caesar says something and they do contrary. They do the opposite. Seeing that there is another king, Jesus. There's a different king than Caesar. This King Jesus is dead, but he lives in us. And when they collectively wake up to that fact, going to the chapel and we're going to get married. Going to the chapel and we're going to get married. Gee, I really love you. And if you love him, keep his commands. His command says pay 10% of your increase. All right. So Joshua Hockett says, what's up? Preach it, brother. Thank you, Joshua. I hope you're burning the cannabis of Exodus like I am. I'm having a great time. Scott Bunnell says, I was referring to your show for skills, brother. Very good. Yeah, warrior. Scott. Hoorah, my fellow Yah warrior. Let's get with the program. Let's overcome these devils. Let's reflect the light of our King and Creator. Let's say a prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed is your name. Hallowed, revered, a name among the King of creation, the one who wrote the end from the beginning, that we're just walking it out. But he's blessed us to give us grace, the ability to walk through heroically and nobly and repent when we do evil things immediately, like to just have a humble heart, because you're going to mess up all the time. But stay on it, stay on point, get back in the game. War, you're being warred upon. You have no other option. And Yah will make your steps easier if you observe his Sabbath, which is Saturday today. Shabbat Shalom, brother, sister. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, Father. Thank you for paying the debt with your blood, your son's blood. Thank you. Thank you for this free gift of grace. Thank you. And as a bride, as a humble bride, we collectively, as we walk humbly in sackcloth, really seeing how we've done great evil by taking an oath to the U.S. Constitution, doing great evil for voting these phony leaders and political puppets, voting and fighting with our fellow tribesmen, our fellow debt slaves, right? These fellow debt slaves of all races and colors and creeds and all that, they're not the problem. It's not it's not the wall. Get off of all that divide and conquer stuff. And get on this, is that America belongs to the original First Nation Americans. Africa belongs to the original First Nation Africans. And the Africans can figure that out. Which is what? And we Europeans, in the restitution of all things, when all things, the time of refreshing, the time of the great Jubilee, when all are made whole, your King has come. Thanks for listening, guys, and share the good news with your tribe.